Hello, this is Greg Allison with Galactic Greg's coming to you on the 2nd of August 2020 with the exciting news of the return of the Crew Dragon 2 Demo 2 Splashdown on Earth. Yes, for the first time in 45 years and just a wee bit over a week, we have had a splashdown of American crew on Earth. The crew, of course, being Doug Hurley and Robert Benenken, or we like to refer to him as Doug and Bob. So this is exciting for many reasons, and there's a couple of unique perspectives I'm going to share with you in this video. And those unique perspectives have to do with, not only historical commercial crew flight, but also the nature and ties to the previous splashdown of the Apollo Soyuz Test Project from 45 years earlier, and the fact that they had the very first ever splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico, and maybe some new potential for operations in and out of the Gulf of Mexico, to include a video of me and one of my rocket launches from the Gulf of Mexico over 20 years ago. So let's get on with it. You can support this channel by clicking the links below, and maybe supporting my sister channel, Green Greg's. So with that said, this was a very momentous thing, because 45 years ago, we had the splashdown of the Apollo Soyuz Test Project. It had very similar problems with crew recovery that we had with the Demo 2 crew today. So we'll talk about that. But first, to say, it's exciting. No mission is complete until the crew is safely returned home. We all celebrated the launch of Doug and Bob. Pardon me. We were all very excited, but it is the return of the crew that really excites me the most, because space is dangerous. Space flight is dangerous. You ride up on a controlled explosion, you come back like a meteorite, and until you get back home, it's not done. But they made it. So this does indeed pave the way for future missions, for new commercial activities. Now, this is deemed to be the first commercial crew flight, although I'd say it's a different procurement method, because NASA did pay for it and had a big hand in the development process, including oversight of the parachutes. NASA really grilled SpaceX and made them do a lot of demonstrations of the parachutes. They used 4 parachutes to return to Earth with the Dragon 2 Demo 2, unlike the Apollo, which used 3. And there's a lot of complications with getting 4 parachutes to deploy correctly. You have various phases coming down of drogues, opening the chutes and open them at various levels. We call them reefers, as you cut various lines to allow the chute to open. And so you have ordnance devices that cut the lines, that constrict them to the smaller sizes, because when you're re-entering and coming in at high velocity, if the chute is fully deployed, it'll rip to pieces. So there's a lot to do with that. And because you don't want to break too fast, you want to step that up, and that's why you have those reefer cutters that give you that opening of the chutes in various phases. I don't remember how many steps there is in this particular recovery operation of chute opening. That said, it's very interesting that they did go through an arduous test phase, and they made it, and the crew returned safe. Now, it's always the case that all hazards are not always uncovered, sometimes until way down the operations legacy of some vehicle. But hopefully we've got all the low-hanging stuff taken care of, and we can have many safe missions with the Dragon crew system, Dragon 2, that is. This is an upgrade. It just so happens that SpaceX has actually launched 20 cargo missions to the International Space Station. And they launched, of course, the Dragon 2 Demo 1 flight earlier, which I also covered on this channel. So now we finally reached a very exciting period here. The Boeing CST-100 Starliner is lagging somewhat. They're having software bugs. They did do a flight of that vehicle, and they had to basically abort the orbit. It did return safe to the Earth, but then it discovered other software glitches in it after it returned to Earth. So there's still a lot of development to get that system landed. Flying and landing. And actually it does land. It lands on land, kind of like the Soyuz capsules, which is a first for an American spacecraft, because we always either splashed down or went to a runway. Now, the last time we splashed down, again, was 24th of July, 1975. So we are literally just 45 years and about a week beyond that point. So I want to talk about that mission in a bit because it is very similar to this mission. So, you know, you're going to get a lot of commentators, a lot of the YouTube channels that's just going to highlight on what SpaceX done, what they've accomplished here is great. But you don't want to hear that all over again. So I'm going to give you a little different perspective because my video is not right on top of this. You know, I'm coming a little bit later here today. So I'm gonna paint a little different picture for you. And hopefully I can make it interesting and entertaining, informative, and point to some other potential prospects for what we can do in space to include potentially activities of Blue Origin. So let's get with it here. As we know, Bob and Doug returned today. They actually splashed down at about 1:48 Central Daylight Time. I say Central because they splashed down in the Central Time Zone, just about 40 miles off the coast of Pensacola, which is directly due south of me, maybe even a little west of me. Pensacola. Yeah, it's slightly west of where I'm at. It is definitely in the Central Time Zone. And about 40 miles offshore. Well, I'll show you some videos shortly of me doing a rocket launch 200 miles offshore from Pensacola. Now, I knew they were pretty close to Pensacola because there were a flotilla of civilian observer craft that started assembling around the splashdown location there. And a lot of those were craft that really would not venture too far out in the ocean. I mean, like speedboat type craft in the ocean. So, you know, those guys would not want to go too awful far out there. Well, what's the significance of going off the coast of Pensacola? Well, that is an Air Force bombing test range run by Eglin Air Force Base. And you can schedule launches through there and recoveries and operations. And it gives you cleaner operations in a lot of other areas. Launching off the East Coast, operating off the East Coast, you can get involved in more air traffic. Also, of course, you know, the ocean is not a trouble, but the eastern corridor going down the East Coast is pretty rough for a rocket launch. Now, if you're, the other thing about that is you're just outside of the area where we've got all the oil rigs, which is around Louisiana. I'll show you that in a little bit and talk to that. So that gave them a lot of operational advantages. And of course, the sea there was kind of like glass. And they went there originally because, you know, Hurricane Isis, or whatever you call it, Isaias, which is a little bit more than I can say us. So, yeah, which I think just got downgraded to a tropical storm. Maybe to kick back up. I don't know. I'm not the weatherman, and weathermen always still good at telling us these things, right? So they were 40 miles off the coast of Pensacola, which is a pretty good place to be, by the way, and that means that they'll be able to get back to land pretty quick. What we know also is that unlike Apollo liftoffs, splashdowns, Apollo had for its board escape system a launch escape system, which was a tower on top of the capsule, and that tower would jettison after a certain point in launch. The escape motors for the Dragon vehicle are built into the vehicle itself, or the Draco thrusters. As you might recall, our first Dragon 2 Demo 1 vehicle that went to ISS actually blew up on a subsequent test of those Draco thrusters. They've corrected the valving problem that let that happen. And so now we've been able to launch a crew. But, you know, that just made more delays for this crew launch. Oh, by the way, this crew splashed down a day shy of 2 years. They were actually appointed to this mission August the 3rd, 2018. So a day shy of their 2-year anniversary of being appointed to the mission, they splashed down. We told you that. So that makes for an interesting factoid. So they've been in training for this, but they really thought they would fly a lot sooner. But those Draco thrusters, you know, have monomethyl hydrazine and nitrogen hexoxide as the fuel. And these are hypergolic fuels. You combine them and they combust automatically. And they store quite well on the spacecraft, so they make great fuels for escape systems, for reaction control systems. But they're somewhat, you know, dangerous. Very dangerous. The fumes are dangerous. If you spill the liquid on you, it'll like burn a hole through your shoe, like monomethyl hydrazine will burn a hole through your shoe and go right in your skin and get in your bloodstream and poison you. It's like you know, the movie The Aliens, or the blood of the aliens that would drip through and burn through everything and poison. I'm not talking about aliens. I'm just talking about chemistry here, okay? So don't get excited. Yeah, I heard that Egypt just had to tell Elon that, hey, our pyramids were not built by aliens. But you want to get on Elon's vehicles and ride them, even though he believes that pyramids were built by aliens, right? Well, I think not. But anyway, but they probably may have had parts of them built prior to the current Egyptians. At least the Sphinx may have been built by an earlier civilization, human civilization, I would submit. All right, so let's talk some more here. The thing is that that monomethyl hydrazine, actually for them, it was the nitrogen tetroxide that was the problem. The nitrogen tetroxide was the oxidizer for the fuel. And before they recovered the crew, there had been some kind of seepage or leakage. It was in that area between the hatch of the crew cabin and where the outer hatch was. And so they did not want the astronauts exposed to that. They wanted the parts per million to be zilch, nothing. And so the crew surgeon really made them purge that and purge it real good. The purging crew wore breathing apparatuses and such to make that purge work. And they got it done. But that's important. It's vital. I mean, some of you guys watched that for 30 minutes and went, oh my God, when are they going to let these guys out? Well, so let's talk about the last time they had a problem. Now, what's unique again? Why did I talk about Apollo? Because Apollo didn't have those Draco thrusters. It had that launch escape system. And so you saw crews on Apollo come right out of the capsules. I mean, you know, some of them were put on the decks of aircraft carriers. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you'd see these crews being hoisted up right out of from the helicopter pad. But, you know, they really wouldn't work too good, you know, not helicopter, basket, you know, they would recover the crews in some of the older missions. They would fly with a helicopter and lower a basket, winch down and bring the guys back up to the basket, the astronauts, and then fly them back. You know, with these longer duration missions, you need more medical attention than that, and having more of this hypergolic fuel on board, then there's other risks associated. Because they got rid of the launch escape system, we're on right now we're calling launch abort system now for our current SLS vehicle. You know, they didn't have as much of that kind of fuel around Apollo days, so they didn't sweat it as much. We had that, you know, stuff on the space shuttle. So you remember when the space shuttles landed, they were worried about that. You know, the stuff that ran the auxiliary power units, APUs, they generated electrical power, and the RCS thrusters. They all had that stuff in it. Well, so Apollo did pretty well until the Apollo Soyuz Test Project. The last previous splashdown. Well, it just so happens that it also had RCS thrusters on the command module, you know, little holes in the command module for thrusters. Oh no, this is a pepper shaker. That's the holes for the pepper to come out. But, you know, kind of like that. Hey, you know, you got to have a little fun, right? I hope you don't mind a little excursion into humor. It gives you a little levity to the topic. So the RCS thrusters on the Apollo capsule for the Apollo Soyuz Test Project, one of them did not get shut off properly. Now, the astronauts on the Apollo Soyuz Test Project were Thomas P. Stafford, Vance Brand, and Deke Slayton, Donald K. Deke Slayton. It just happens Deke Slayton was one of the original Mercury 7. And he never got to fly because he had a heart arrhythmia. It was discovered right before he was supposed to command a mission. He got grounded in 1962. He got cleared 10 years later in 1972. And it was too late to go to the moon, but he got scheduled for the Apollo Soyuz Test Project. He was a chief astronaut, in the astronaut office in the meantime. So a lot of us have heard and have fond memories of Deke Slayton. And of course, he's unfortunately the only one of that crew that's now passed away. But Deke Slayton was a real pioneer in the space world. But anyway, so what happened was that Brand takes the responsibility himself for the accident with the nitrogen tetroxide on that mission. what happened was that he says he didn't hear Stafford calling out the checklist. Now, if you've ever looked on the panel of an Apollo capsule, the control panels, or if you've ever seen the control panels of a space shuttle, you got tons of toggle switches. I mean, just toggle switches everywhere, because they didn't have the computer controls we have today. They didn't have stuff where you just reach in and touch a screen and start touching icons and little buttons and everything happens. You can switch screens. You know, we got a lot of versatility with our software today. They didn't have back then. Everything so much then was hardwired. You know, their whole guidance computer was something that fit inside of some of your watches. You have far more computer in your cell phone than that spacecraft had. So they had to toggle a lot of switches. The astronauts literally flew the capsule. They did have a flight computer, but they did a lot of tasking themselves. And I have been in the capsule of a space shuttle simulator in an adult space camp here in Huntsville, Alabama, space camp. And I'm gonna tell you what, yeah, we had 3 missions running. We had, you know, we were all engineers working launch vehicles. We were all launch vehicle engineers. We got to go to this adult space camp, so we were all excited about that. So we had 3 crews, I believe it was, 2 or 3. I forget how many it was now, but there were some other crews, and I think there was 3. If I remember right, but we were all supposed to go through our mission, land on Earth, and when you're hunting those toggle switches and you got to flip them in a hurry, that is one heck of a chore to find everything and flip it and do what you got to do in sequence. That is extremely tough to do. So I imagine it takes a lot of training to be Johnny on the spot with that. And Brand said he didn't hear the command, so the RCS thruster didn't get cut off. So what happened is, upon splashdown, right prior to splashdown, at some point the vehicle starts taking in atmospheric air, and when it did, it drew in the air from the thruster, and it was contamination. Well, Brand passed out. He blacked out momentarily. It was Stafford who retrieved the emergency oxygen mask and put one on Brand and one on Slayton. Stafford saved everyone, basically. They could have all died. I mean, one of them already passed out. So that was a very, very close call. And in fact, the 3 astronauts spent 2 weeks in a hospital in Honolulu after that mission. 2 weeks. It took them that long to recover, and it did just to get out of the hospital. So it did damage to them. It hurt them. You know, this stuff is deadly and can possibly leave permanent lung damage. You know, get enough of it to kill you. So those guys were lucky, and maybe all the other Apollo astronauts were also lucky. Anytime you deal with these systems, there's risk involved in it. So I was glad to see the proper precautions taken today by SpaceX and their medical team. They said during the recovery process that safety was first, and indeed they lived by that. So I'm happy for that, very happy. So that's the connection with the Apollo Soyuz Test Project, is that they both had problems with nitrogen tetroxide, one of the hypergolic fuels, the other being monomethyl hydrazine. So they both had problems with that, but the outcome for the crew recovery today was much more successful. And so we can all applaud the crew for that. Of course, they had more material to deal with, and I hope that they continue to be successful. This is not a trivial thing. Just because we had one good flight don't mean they'll all be good. You know, it's risk. Going to space is risky. Don't doubt that for 1 second. It's a very risky operation. You know, I was teasing about Elon earlier. What he's accomplished with SpaceX is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Pyramids aside. You know, personal beliefs and technical acumen can differ somewhat. There's lots of people with lots of faiths, but they have different professions. And so, you know, I don't know. So that's all funny, to a point. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a little bit about the Gulf and what this can be. The first ever recovery in the Gulf. I'm going to share a couple of things with you here. And I think I'll start out just sharing you a snippet of the recovery operation, so we can have a look at that. Give me a second to find the right icon here. Yeah, sometimes the stuff doesn't show it too well. Maybe I'll skip that. Let's do this. Let's go to Google Earth. Now, I'm showing you where these guys recovered. They recovered about 40 miles off coast. So they were somewhere in this area down here. That's Pensacola. They were down here. I was operating somewhere about down here when I was operating. See where my cursor's pointing? So I was down here and they were up here. Let's see my cursor in this video here. Paint, sometimes, you know, yeah, they were right about here, and I was about here. Not a good choice of color, right? All right. Now, what's really cool about the Gulf of Mexico is that, let's say if you actually, it's a good launch location. I've already done launches from there. It's also a good location for recovery, as we just seen, Splashdown. But where it could really shine and be spectacular, it's good for rockets. Now you can build rockets. Now see, right now a lot of our SpaceX is building their rockets over. Let's see, let's draw mode. SpaceX is building their rockets over in off the coast of the East Coast, Titusville area, Cocoa Beach, and off the San Padre Island area, east coast of South Texas. Both of them are very vulnerable to hurricanes there, but you're actually building these tall rockets there. You know, you might choose, it might be better to build a lot of your rocket components farther inland and ship them down. So the cool thing, I'll go back and share here. I'll click share because my system wasn't controlling right. Oh, here we go. That's what it's showing a minute ago. Here's a splashdown. I'll play it without sound. Real brief. That's a real brief snippet. You know, it should not be a copyright issue. There we go. That was the splashdown. Let's see, there's 4 shoots. Look at that. Those 4 shoots. I love the way they waffle down. Look at that. Flower petals. Isn't that beautiful? See the boat going at them? All right. The only other thing I might want to show is capsule. Let's see, I'm going to turn the capsule there. I'm stepping through it. It's about 30 minutes to purge. Okay. See him bringing out. Doug Hurley was the first astronaut they extracted. Getting ready to bring him out. Let's get forward to that. So I don't want to strike. Okay, he's coming out. When we split him out, he's setting up. Yeah, he didn't want to lay down on that gurney. Anyway, so they got him out at about a minute to the next hour. And Central Time is about 2:59. A little over an hour after splashdown. So that was very efficient and very quick. Get rid of that video. And I'm going to show you another video on here of a launch in the Gulf of Mexico. This is my Cat's Prize rocket. This boat was called the Mr. Offshore. It actually operated out of Pensacola, Florida, the Naval Intercoastal System Station there. And I rented it from them. The exhaust pipes are diverted to the side so it wouldn't burn holes through my balloon. But, you can see it flying above. So let's hang on. Let's watch this. Got the tether holding. So watch it release. So I'll take a watch it. Cut the restraint. Tether and off it goes. This was the year 2000, October 2000. Almost. There's a balloon. There's a hybrid rocket. Got overhead. My buddy Bill Brown says, "Hope it don't drop now." All right, back out of here, just for fun. Yeah, we were in the Gulf of Mexico, 200 miles out. Here it is at launch altitude. "20 miles up almost." Let's see. There's launching. There goes the rocket. There's a rocket. You see the rocket? I'll tell you more about that in the future. So I'll do a video. I'll do some videos about these things in the future. I've just done a brief shot there, because let me go into another share. Stop that share. Now I'm going to go into another share here. Give me a second. It takes a second to switch these things around. And I want to show you. It is on Google. I think that's what was throwing me off. I guess it is. Here we go. The rivers and waterways of Alabama. Just so happens that Alabama has various, this is the Gulf of Mobile. Oh, by the way, the SpaceX Dragon 2, Crew 2, Demo 2 rocket was recovered by a ship called the Go Navigator. The Go Navigator was built by Master Shipbuilders, that's the name of the company, Master Shipbuilders in Coden, Alabama, which is located right about here. So that's an Alabama ship, my friends. We have a lot of ship manufacturing in this area. And here's another bay, which is quite a good place for some operations. And then we've got these rivers here. Well, the cool thing about Alabama, there's several cool things. One, if you wanted to, say, drop asteroids in the Gulf of Mexico, which we'll go back to the Earth in a minute, and recover them, or pieces of it, you could go up the Alabama River. You can go either up the Coosa River, or the Cahaba River, or the Black Warrior. If you go up the Cahaba River, you can go up into Gadsden, where we used to have a major steel mill, which is still there in mothballs. You can go up the Cahaba River to get to most of your steel mills in the Jefferson County, Birmingham area. And you could probably get to some of those through the Black Warrior. Not sure how navigable the Black Warrior is up in this area, but Cahaba River, definitely. Cahaba River could definitely be used to transport these materials. But better yet, there are, the Trinity rocket plant, which was built for the ELV program that the Air Force set up, that's supposed to have been able to support 60 launches a year, is very much underutilized. That's under a ULA contract. And so it's probably not a place that SpaceX would want to go, but Blue Origins is in tight with ULA. So Blue Origins might cut a deal with them to use that. It's in Trinity, Alabama, which is right outside Decatur. So it's right here. Well, you can go up this Tom Bigby River. There's a canal called the Tin Tom that you can take. So it's Tennessee Tom Bigby Waterway. Takes you right up here into the Tennessee River. And these lakes and rivers are very navigable. All that is with barges. You can take rockets, whatever you want. You can take them all the way to the Marshall Spaceflight Center, even right here. There's big docks for big ocean-going barges that can go in and out of the Marshall Spaceflight Center, or to the Trinity plant or any other plants down this riverway. And over here is a place in Mississippi where they had a nuclear power plant, Iuka, Mississippi, and what's the name of that place? I got brain lock right now, but they had a nuclear power plant that got mothballed right now. There's a large fairing production facility that I believe ATK is controlling for a while. They build large composites. At one time, it was meant to build the advanced solid rocket boosters, which were going to be filament wound composite single piece boosters, unlike the multiple joint systems that caused the failure in the Challenger accident. Of course, they fixed that with other means and redundancies from ATK, which is now bought up by Northrop Grumman. But they went through and made various fixes to that. But at one time, they were planning to build those rockets back over in this area right here. So there's a lot of rocket manufacturing capability up here. You've got more PhDs per capita and more engineers per capita in this Huntsville, Alabama area than anywhere in the free world. So you've got a lot of high education. You got the University of Alabama in Huntsville, which has a good aerospace, good electrical, good engineering department, very robust school. You've got a lot of manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing capability in this area. So there's a lot, and you have this manufacturing capability. Decatur's a manufacturing town. So, and there's a steel mill up in this area too. and somewhere on indicator they actually have a steel mount. So you've got rocket components you can build, and you could do retrieval and smelting and turning asteroid material into whatever metals you want to do, whatever you want to do with them. So this is a good area. You take it straight up out of the Gulf of Mexico and bring it right back up to manufacturing areas. So let's stop that share and go back to Google Earth. We'll go back into that and look at that for a second. Not too many Googles open. Yeah, but Google, my Google the thing I was trying to, the Google browser wasn't showing up on my thing a minute ago for some reason. My share screen. So this is what we're talking about. This Gulf of Mexico is huge. You could actually conduct launches down here out of the area where SpaceX is operating, very tip of Texas, as you could over here where his other operation center is. But you can also conduct launches out of the Gulf of Mexico, recoveries. There's concepts for recovery bodies, reentry bodies, lifting bodies that you come back and shape some of the asteroid material into. Use part of the asteroid material for that. And it might be built where it would mostly float, where it float. So you could splash it down in the Gulf. And if you didn't mind it sinking for a distance, you know, if you want to come in somewhere around here, especially right around here, where it's not as deep offshore, you could get down to it with some kind of operation, recovery equipment, easier. You might choose to do that. But I would say try to design it with some kind of lifting body that would float and just bring the ore back. Then you could just zip it right up the river. Are you listening, Mr. Jeff Bezos? Here's your business concept. Yeah, come see me and we'll talk about it. I know all the people in the area. All right, I'll be paying attention to Aunt Martha. So, yeah, this is the areas I operate in. I've been out in the Gulf of Mexico several times to see. It's a good location for operations. I have been caught by squall lines there. I got all kind of war stories I can tell you in the future, and I'll do that in future videos. So it's been a while since I made a video. I've been a little bit behind lately. I've had a lot of things I've had to catch up on. I hope to return to more normal production in the near future. I've got video material that all I'd have to do is edit it and post it. I've got some video talking about a thruster, a plasma thruster that got constructed by a 3D printer and how it performed like industry thrusters. So I've got a lot of interesting things to talk about. So let me stop that share. Back to the channel here. So, and I can drill in more on potential for a Gulf of Mexico operation. I've got a lot of materials to talk about planets that have been found. There's new articles coming up constantly. My last best video was about a new planet discovery, and I've had a lot of material on such discoveries since then. It just takes time to sit and process and do these videos. So please, if you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe. Bang the notification bell and click all, because I will come up with more videos and I will get more regular. One of my aspirations is to one day be full-time with this. Now, there are other YouTube channels out there. That's all they do. They sit here full-time and monitor, you know, what SpaceX or somebody else is doing, and they report on it every day. And they'll give you every little boat that they're moving on, something like, you know, Starship. And that's cool. That's fine. Those are fun, good channels. I have a day job, and I have another YouTube channel, which is far bigger than this one. And I have a market garden and a worm farm, and I must be nuts. I got the mean irons to fire. So it is my aspiration to one day move beyond my day job and do these kind of videos and other things, other projects on a more regular basis. But for now, the day job pays the bills. But I do work space. And I'm wearing this Apollo commemorative cap today because we are in the Apollo commemorative season. And I was talking about the Apollo Soyuz Test Project and the salt shaker there. So, all right. So I hope we had a little fun. I shared some videos with you. I showed you some things I've done. And I've talked about how it's important that we now have a new phase of commercial space activities, that there's prospects for operating out of the Gulf of Mexico, that there's real interesting analogies between what happened with the Dragon recovery and the Apollo Soyuz Test Project recovery, real close analogies. And I must say that the SpaceX team handled that very, very well. That is why they needed that 30 minutes to open that hatch. Because a lot of y'all were sitting around like, oh, how long is it going to take? The guys inside well understood it. They were patient. They probably knew all about, you know, Brand passing out, and those guys spending 2 weeks in a hospital in Honolulu. Oh, interestingly, the recovery ship for the Apollo Soyuz Test Project was in New Orleans. Now this crew splashed down far closer to New Orleans because the other guys were out the Pacific Ocean. So I'm really happy. Now we've got things dialed in. We can do operations in and out of places like the Gulf of Mexico. I'm thrilled. That's going to open the door to a lot of potential in the future. I've already been down there 20 years ago doing launches, so I know something about it. So unlike a lot of other YouTube channels, what do I bring? I am a space engineer. I have launched rockets from the Gulf of Mexico. I have launched balloons. I've been out in the Gulf of Mexico several times. I've done my own rocket development. I work full time in rocket systems. That's what I do. I know launch vehicles. I know the safety aspects of them. I could do whole videos and probably will on the issues and risk of lithium-ion batteries and other systems and subsystems. I'll talk to you about rockets. I still got to do the rockets one-on-one video. That's something I promised I'll do it. It's going to start as a very basic video to explain rockets, and then I will dial in and get more and more complex with rocket systems. So we'll talk rocket systems quite a bit in the future. I've been kind of skipping around on other topics as they've come up, but we will do more and more. By the way, check out the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. They're having a fundraiser right now because of the bug going around. They had shut down operations, restick stuff a lot, and they've got to raise a certain amount of money by October or shut down completely, permanently. And that would be a shame. That's where the space camp in this country began. And they've got an excellent space camp. That's what I was talking about. And when I said I went to an adult space camp, I spent a week there in an adult space camp. That was a lot of fun, very informative. They gave you a concept of what the astronauts have to deal with, what mission operations has to do with, mission control. It was interesting. I got to be the pilot. Oh yeah, another 3 missions we ran, the other 2 guys crashed. We succeeded, but we were coming in a bit too high, and we did a belly roll and brought it back around to get back in on the track. So leave that to galactic grades. Belly roll with space shuttle. Well, we're past the space shuttle days now. But Starship may be coming in for landing. It's very similar to that. So let's see what Starship does. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope Starship has great success, and the successes of SpaceX continue to mount and climb astronomically to Mars, as I so hope. And I'm wearing my Mars color shirt today in anticipation to start my Red Planet Redworm farm. And by the way, so, you know, Elon's not so interested in asteroids. Jeff Bezos is. Jeff Bezos is tied to ULA. So I think it would be better for Jeff Bezos to take the hint on my asteroid operation in the Gulf of Mexico. So I wish him well with Blue Origins. And hopefully that will work out, pan out. Maybe he'll listen and take the hint on that. And who knows, maybe Elon will change his mind and jump on that too. Or maybe some other commercial enterprise will come about that will chase that. Oh, by the way, I've had some experience of being one of the early new space enterprises, the Altitude Research Corporation. And we're still actually intact. We're just simmering right now. So, and that's what that launch you just saw. That was the HARC, Altitude Research Corporation, CATS, Cheap Access to Space Prize rocket. And the CATS prize was ran by the Space Frontier Foundation. So, hats off to the Space Frontier Foundation, to David Anderman for setting that prize up, and all the people that worked on it, chased that, and all the people that supported the HARC, our hybrid rocket motor development. And, you know, I'm going to do some video about Virgin Galactic in the not too distant future, because Virgin Galactic's motor is the grandson of the engine that was on the rocket I just showed y'all. And I'm going to talk more about that rocket. There's a lot to say about that mission and other missions and the programs that we had building up to that. A lot more to come. So I'm on board to death, so I'm going to sign off now. All I'm going to say is thank you for watching.